The exercise is to make 1mm by 1mm strip wood from balsa. Rather than using a cutting knife like this and scribing every single little piece, which takes a long time, I'm going to make a jig that enables you to cut at least 100 pieces out of a 100mm piece of balsa like this. This balsa is 1mm thick. I think that's as low as, what's as low as I can find. I can't find any 1/2 millimeter. So that's what I'm going to do. The first thing we need to do is to cut a section of wood about this size here from a long piece of scrap wood. I've already done that. We all know how to cut wood, so I don't need to do that. Then I need to get a piece of the balsa that we're going to use, the thickness, and cut that balsa to suit the block of wood that we've just cut, which I've just done. Well, never pull, always cut. You wouldn't think balsa would be so hard, would you? There you go. So I finished that now for the second of that. I have this piece of balsa and I'm going to place it onto this block of wood. That's my spacer. So I get the glue all over the balsa. Jumps around a bit. There, and also on the piece of wood. Just need a little bit. It's not going to be any dramatic strength put on it at all. It's just a spacer. That's all this is. It's just a spacer. Okay. Now I put that on there. I bring my wood in, my 1mm wood, and I lower the spacer down to touch it. Hold that there in place. The glue is tacky, it sticks it up. Now I have a 1mm space along there, which enables this jig to slide along that 1mm space. Just make sure I've got that exactly 1mm by measuring it. And I place that down and I put my weight on it and wait till it to dry. So we place the timber and the jig down, and we put our heavy weight on that, and we wait a few minutes for that to dry before we carry on with the next step. Now, exercise today, I'm going to shorten this 1 meter length of balsa to a smaller piece so I can fit it into the camera. So I'll square this 1mm sheet off there, nice sharp knife, and I'll use this small piece to demonstrate how quickly it works. I have a cutting pad that's much longer, and it makes it much easier to cut 1 meter lengths of 1mm by 1mm board. So we're now waiting for the jig to dry, and I'll show you some of the other pieces that I've done. These are 3mm by 4mm that I'm doing for a trestle bridge that I'm making, all to scale. And as you can see, these are 1 meter long, quite long pieces. That's how long that balsa comes. And I'm now ready to wait and see what happens with the next thing. So the glue is kind of dry on this, and I'm going to put the cutter or the razor blade, as long as I don't cut myself with it first, onto the jig here. Now the blade must be just a fraction above the jig, the template, and just a fraction below the cutting mark. That way you're using the entire blade to cut. I mark the area where I'm going to place a screw. Like that. Very simple stuff. And somewhere where I can put another ridge on the top. So that's the marking of it, and the next thing we do is actually apply the screws. Now the screws, it is important that you don't use screws that have that round or pointed section here for boring into the wood or countersinking into the wood. You must use a screw that is like this, that has a totally flat mushroom type head on it. Otherwise, from my experience, it just totally splits the razor blade with too much pressure, and having the funnel type underside of the screw here, it actually splits the razor in half. So my suggestion is that you use 2 or 3 of these. You don't need 3, but I'll put 3 in for this exercise, but not that one. Back in the jar. Turn my new jig over. Just make sure that we have 1 millimeter gap there. That's it, just on 1 millimeter. Yep, 1 millimeter tight both ends. Now I have pre-drilled, pre-marked that space, and I had a very small bit. Here. Making sure I don't drill a hole all the way through. My mat. Well, that glue didn't stick very well. Well, that glue doesn't seem to work very well. It's this one that I got from a hobby shop. It's just called white glue, but that's all come undone. That's not very good. But the screws will hold the blade in for now, and I'll finish this off, and we can then that position. Start these two off. The size of the screw looks like an overkill. There, that's on. That's not going to go anywhere. I don't think I'll even need that that middle screw in there, but I've got it there if I do need it. But that one seems to hold well. And these others I never used. This is 1/8 by 1/8. I use these screws here, and they're the wrong kind. As you can see, it just split the blade clean in half. So I don't use those anymore. I bought a packet of these flatheads that have a great amount of adherence to keep the razor blade in place. So that is now right. I just brush this dust, bring my piece of balsa that I cut. See, it breaks so easy, this does. And I put it there. It's not square. That's perfect. Alright, it's been a couple of days since I made this jig, and I was wondering why this jig was different from the first 1mm by 1mm that I did, because it cut the stripping absolutely perfectly, and I didn't know why this one wouldn't. So I examined them both to find out what I had done differently with this one, and it's here. That little tiny bit that's sticking up past the flat of the jig is overriding and riding up on top of the stock, and in doing so it's not making a perfectly bit of strip wood. So today I'm going to pull this off. I can't move it up 1/2 millimeter because that's about all it needs moving, so I've got to be able to take it back about 5mm and up 1/2 millimeter to make this knife ride properly. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll undo. You probably notice I changed screwdrivers too. This screwdriver is 8 gauge, and I started the jig off with a 6 gauge, and it didn't really like doing that. The screw, I mean, not the screwdriver. It didn't care probably. So I'll take this one off. Go, and I shall move that in line there. That one's perfect, and this one that's perfect there as well. Now drilling the holes to start the screw off. Before I put the screw in, okay, that looks okay. So I'll put those screws back in that hole, those new holes. This won't look as pretty. They're not made to look pretty, they're made to function. And the function is to make perfectly square strip wood. There you go. Now that hole is dead in the center, giving me the exact right overhang. When the balsa sheets, the 100mm wide balsa sheets, are 5mm, 3mm, 4mm thick, it doesn't really matter about this problem. Now that's just happened again. Okay. I wonder why that's... oh, I see. The screw has gone about 1/2 millimeter up when I've moved it. Right, I'll move it again. When you do the thicker sheets of balsa, this doesn't really matter, because I noticed some of my other thicker, like 5x5 jigs, the blade is hanging down a little bit further than what this one is, but when it comes to the really thin balsa, it does matter. So when these screws go on, these flathead screws, they're most likely the wrong gauge. So it's getting full of holes, isn't it? There we go. I'll lift this up. Drill it right through. No reason to drill it right through other than let's screw that in a little bit better. So I'll cut this there, and I'll go and see if I can find a flathead smaller screw rather than use these. So I've replaced the screws. Now I don't have any flatheads this small. These are 4 gauge, and the other flatheads I had were 6 gauge, but I've taken them down so to the point where it doesn't break the razor blade, because it doesn't sit up high on here on the backbone of the razor blade. And I've run this one. Now this is 4-inch, off the 4-inch, and this is 1mm square, and it has turned out perfectly. So I now know what the problem is, and that is keeping this end here just so you can just feel it past the bottom of the jig, and having this end raised above the jig, and it works perfectly. So I had the blade too far down here, so there's a fault that I've discovered that may help you if you happen to build these jigs, or like the idea of having a different jig for every size board, so you can just pick it up out of your collection and just go and cut them all up, and then you got them all. If you need one extra, you don't have to go and reset up your variable jig. You can just make this these beautiful little bits of timber any size you like. And I said this is only 3 of them, but 5. This is my 6th one that I've made. I have all different sizes, and the next one I'm going to make is going to see if I can do a 1mm by 1/2 millimeter along here. So things like fence palings and all the rest of it, like that. So it enables me to build more things and just have a little bit of, rather than use styrene. I use styrene a lot, but not like it's not like timber really. It's just more exciting for me to use this. So that's it again for the second time. I discovered a fault, we've fixed the fault, and it works fantastically. So thank you very much. I'm working on a jig at the moment for making weatherboard, HO scale weatherboard. So that's what I'm filming at the same time, and it might take a bit of time, the trial and error, but once I get the jig right, I'll make a second jig and film it and show you. So this is my Railroad 01 video, my first one, and I've got a lot of jigs to make. You may remember, some of you, way back, long way back, Clive McTaggart, who started off Austral Hobbies. I think it was at Tarragindi. I used to make all his miniature timbers and all that for him when I was very young, a lot younger than I am now. And I got to know the hobby then, and I made all the weatherboards, all the sidings for building your own railroad wagons and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be fun this time, because I didn't have a camera then to record what I was doing. So this is going to be an enjoyable exercise to record all these little jigs that I made up. I mean, these jigs are probably around, other people have done them as well, but this is what. Let's see how it goes. We'll take this blue cutting board off and put it on the larger cutting board. I've adjusted the blade up against there you go. Absolutely spot on. 1mm square, and you can get 100 of these out of one 4-inch piece, of course, because they're 100mm. There's no wastage, and you cut them. They're especially great for doing any kind of planking or anything like that. So I hope you enjoy it. I know most of you probably already know how to do these kinds of things, whether you use a craft knife or whatever, but this is the way that I do it, and I've said that I have one of these for every size that I use in my scratch building, and they certainly come in handy. So if I need another piece of 1 by 1 a meter long, I just pick this up, run it through, and I've got it. And you can do the same with a knife. What I've done, and I have a lot of fun building with this. So thank you very much. I'd just like to say that I'm a member of Logan District Model Railroad Club and the National Model Railroad Association of Australia, and I really encourage anybody who's not in a club to join. If you live in this area here, Logan City, or in the surrounding area, it's worth a drive. It's a great layout, a great club, great bunch of guys, and they really help you with everything modeling, and especially if you're scratch building, and you know, they can give you hints on absolutely everything. So it's very important that you belong to at least one of these clubs, or a club near you. I don't think just this video will stay just in one space. It'll be all over the place. So join a club, learn the trade. It's really great. Probably not a trade, learn the craft. Goodbye.